Thank you for joining us today for our fireside chat, 3 email marketing wins powered by first-party data. My name is Lizzie Hoffman. I'm a member of the marketing team here at Data, and I have 2 lovely ladies with me today that I will introduce shortly. But as everyone files in, we want to cover a couple of housekeeping things first. So number 1, this is a recorded session. Feel free to kick back, relax, and enjoy the chat. No pressure. Since you registered, you'll receive a follow-up email with the full recorded session and a few other helpful items related to today's chat, either tomorrow or Friday. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. And then for questions, as always, we address them at the end so we can have time to get through everything. But feel free to submit them using the questions section of your GoToWebinar platform at any point throughout the discussion. So we'll get to those at the end, no worries. And if we don't get to your question at the end, we'll follow up with you. So start things off, introductions. Katie, how about you go first?
Sure. So my name is Katie Intrader. I am VP of Business Development here at Data, previously Tower Data. And I've been at the company now for 9 years. And my responsibility is to bring in new business as well as manage some of our strategic partnerships, like the one that we have with Inbox Monster. Anna?
I am Anna Kotlikov, a longtime email geek. I've been working in the email deliverability space for a number of years. I'm losing count now. I'm a senior deliverability analyst at Inbox Monster, and I have the pleasure of working with a variety of different clients, just making sure they're getting the most of their email programs.
Great. Well, I'm really excited to have you both here today. And we're going to be boiling down making the most of your first party data to kind of a 3-point checklist that we're going to dive into. So the first piece is ensuring email deliverability. Second, running re-engagement campaigns. And third, personalizing content. Would love to kick things off with deliverability, specifically for you, Anna. So why don't you go ahead?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Lizzie. Deliverability is one, if not the most important part of first-party data. The reason being is how influential one is to the other. This ultimately boils down to how you collect first-party data. Remember, permission, consent is key here, and how you plan to use that data to both you and your subscribers' benefit. So the latter being the main factor in ensuring and maintaining a strong sender reputation. So your sender reputation, I like to refer to that as kind of like your credit score in real life, but for your email program. So this is entirely, well, not entirely, but it is very reliant on end user reaction. So simply put, how are subscribers engaging with your program? Is it positively or is it negatively? Positively being opening and clicking through your emails, etc., and negatively, complaining or marking your messages junk, or just not even opening your emails at all and deleting them. So either of which have heavy weight when assessing your sender reputation. Marketers do need to keep in mind that this is a mutually beneficial relationship. So meeting subscriber expectations from the start is key here. In order to nurture and flourish this relationship, you really need to speak directly to your customers' needs and wants and send emails that subscribers signed up for. This obviously can change down the line. But remember, there are so many useful bits of information collected with first-party data, not only, and that being your subscriber, of course, not only from the beginning where you're collecting their email, but throughout the journey. So in this case, how I like to go about it with my motto is just do not set it and forget it.
Okay, I have a question on that though. So what do we do if we're not supposed to just set it and forget it? I mean, there's so much automation, marketers love it, I love it. So can you elaborate on that? Like what I'm supposed to do if I'm not supposed to set it and forget it?
Yeah, great question. So essentially just ensuring you have nailed down kind of your long-term strategy to meet the needs of your subscribers on an ongoing basis. So it's so imperative to not forget to check in periodically with your subscribers. So hint, hint, preference centers are great for that. And just allowing your subscribers the ability to update their own information directly through your website as well. That's a great way of ensuring your data is up to date and ensuring that your send strategy is updated where needed. So, ensuring you're sending relevant and timely content. And lastly, and very importantly, I'd say, do your due diligence as a marketer and update and manage your data where needed. So I think this would be a great segue for Katie to kind of take over and elaborate a little more on that.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And I agree completely. You definitely don't want to set it and forget it. You want to, first and foremost, make sure that you are staying on top of your deliverability so that you can make sure that your emails are as clean and deliverable as possible. So what most of our clients do is they will run their existing email database through validation, and then they'll get the API up and running right in real time. So as somebody is on your website submitting an email, we'll actually validate that for you right in the web form to prevent any bad data from getting through. And this is going to help to maintain your deliverability moving forward. And so this solution, it's great for catching and correcting spelling and typos, for flagging for those pesky spam traps, and just confirming the deliverability status at that current time. So we actually even have a new unique feature called List Guard, which allows us to house your entire database and will notify you on a monthly basis of any changes to the emails within your list. And so I think that, you know, running these emails through validation is especially important, you know, before the holiday season, and we're getting close to that. So to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success doing this really sort of crucial time of the year. Because if you aren't getting into the inbox due to bad deliverability or engagement, your holiday emails just aren't going to convert and generate the kind of revenue that you need to hit your goals this year. So, you know, once you've kind of gone through the process of removing those hard bounces, the spam traps, the complainers, you should really focus on, you know, reaching those that, you know, want to hear from you and maintaining that deliverability health. And so how does one do this? Well, like we talked about, you want to make sure that you integrate that validation strategy right into your web form and that you use a reputation management company. So Anna can give you some just quick highlights on what utilizing a sort of deliverability platform like Inbox Monster is like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Katie. So yeah, as mentioned, monitoring your deliverability health is definitely going to be vital in order to get a true blueprint of your email program and just get a sense of where you stand with the ISPs. So deliverability tools have evolved so much over the years. There's a ton of information available at your fingertips. For example, you know, providers now are letting you run inbox placement testing. So this allows you to see where your email lands once it leaves the ESP. So is it landing in the inbox or is it potentially landing in the spam folder? And that's a great, you know, cross-examination to some of the metrics provided by your ESP, but gets a little bit more granular as to where your email is landing. If your open rates are, you know, seeing a sudden decline, or maybe you're seeing your bounces increase. So aside from that, you know, some other tools, imperative tools, you know, spam trap and block list monitoring for your IPs and domains, you know, pre and post send analytics, reputation management across the major ISPs, and so much more. Because any changes to any of your setting strategies, you know, for example, any sudden spikes in volume, you know, complaints, you know, digging into an old lapse list, all of that can have some, you know, negative consequences to your deliverability. So having this information at your disposal is super valuable. And as we say over here, consider it troubleshooting before there's trouble. And yeah, just I know deliverability can be quite a daunting subject to you know, chat through with some, and some are very new to deliverability. So a lot of providers also have the ability to you know, you have the ability to work with a deliverability consultant, such as myself even. I work with a variety of different clients to help them understand the data at hand, and basically we act as an extension to your team to help you see and understand, you know, beyond surface level metrics, and also provide actionable recommendations should we see some, you know, need for improvement. So we're here to help essentially.
I think that's awesome because it can be such an issue, like you said, and having a partner who is reliable makes all the difference. But I have a quick question that may be a good segue into our next topic. We mentioned holiday sending, right, Katie? So we talked about that in terms of validation. But is the holiday prep season also a good time to assess your re-engagement strategy then?
I think so. I think the holiday season is actually a great time to try and recapture some of your inactive customers. And so, how does one go about doing that, right? Well, with win back and re-engagement campaigns. So the first step to get started with those is to figure out what your inactive segment looks like to you. So is that they haven't opened or clicked in the past 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? And then once you kind of figure out what that segment looks like, we can actually flag for the last time that those email addresses opened another email campaign. And so this is really going to help you to prioritize which emails within your inactive file you should focus on re-engaging with. So whether it's in the preparation for this holiday season coming up, or it's any time throughout the year, it's just a really smart solution to kind of help bring back your organically opted in customers, because that's always going to be so much more cost effective than going out there and trying to generate the net new customers.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't agree more, Katie. Those are all great points. Especially when you kind of tie in deliverability into this, it's so imperative to define your active versus your inactive audience so you can ensure any negative feedback is kept to a minimum. So keep in mind, definitely keep in mind that there's different send strategies for your active and your inactive audiences. So you need to treat those inactive subscribers a little bit differently than you would your active subscriber base. It's definitely not a one size fits all. You really want positive user feedback to outweigh negative user feedback, especially in the deliverability world of things. These are key metrics that ISPs look at. So the reason being is that if any negative feedback were to outweigh the positive, performance can potentially start dwindling down, and that's the last thing you kind of want to do, especially if you've worked so hard to build your reputation up. So please remember, if they aren't opening and interacting with your content, they're clearly sending you some sort of signal that things need to change.
Exactly, Anna. So, because they're inactive, you've clearly lost their attention. And so it's imperative that you provide them with a discount code or free shipping, or even just change the tone of your marketing to try and grab their attention and win them back. You definitely don't want to stick with what you've been doing because you've sort of lost their interest. And so it's mixing it up, in a creative way that's going to help to re-engage, your customers from the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, I love quoting Spam House here, but if you treat a recipient's inbox and time with respect, they are much less likely to report that email as spam and less likely to unsubscribe. So one motto I love reiterating over and over again.
Even though most of us don't like Spam House, but yes. Well, so funny story. So Anna and I have actually worked together for years at different companies on different client projects. And one really interesting project that we worked on together was for a very large photo printing retailer. And so what they did is they did this creative combination of solutions. So they combined our email validation solution with the month last open solution. And so what they did is they essentially were checking for deliverability and activity all in one go, right? So first you validate those emails and make sure you know exactly which ones are deliverable. And then you can help to sort of prioritize your sends based on whether we've seen them actually open in the past 30, 60, 90 days. And so this really helped this particular retailer with their email conversions during the holiday period, which is, obviously one of their biggest and most important seasons for revenue.
Yeah, that I remember really clearly as if it was yesterday, although I think it was about 4 years ago. But it was definitely a really great safety net for them while re-engaging, especially during the most critical time of year, holidays. And obviously, revenue comes from the holidays, especially for, a seasonal marketer. So yeah, it was great to see that impact was kept to a minimum, and we were able to revive some of those lapsed customers and place them back into their active email funnel. But with that said, there will be folks that are just no longer interested despite your best efforts. So do not be afraid to ask if people want to unsubscribe when re-engaging. So if they're no longer interested what you have to offer, it's probably time to let them go. I know just because you don't want the answer to the question doesn't mean you shouldn't ask it. So give them the opportunity to opt out if that's the case. It doesn't have to be a bad breakup. And remember, an unsubscribe is far, far better than being marked as spam. That is much, much, much more harmful to your reputation, and it's just honestly not worth it. So just learn to say goodbye to those that no longer want to be contacted.
I think that all makes sense. I'm taking notes. Even though I'm supposed to kick back and relax, I'm taking notes on all of this for all of our holiday sending. But so moving on to kind of our last segment here, towards segmentation. We were discussing active versus inactive audiences for re-engagement, right? And we mentioned that there should be kind of a different strategic approach to engaging these audiences. I'm wondering if you could help elaborate on this. Katie, I think maybe?
Yeah, so absolutely. Different audiences deserve different content, right? So you need to ensure that the content that you're putting in front of somebody is relevant and that you're, helping them get the information that's pertinent to who they are and exactly what their household looks like. So you can't just rely on behavioral data. I mean, if you think about the holiday season, I've got a brand new niece. She's a year old. I plan to buy her an obscene amount of presents over the next few weeks. But if a retailer were to look at my behavioral data, it would look like I was buying for a child. So what you really need to do is you need to add on that extra layer of third-party data so that you could know if you looked at the presence of children field that I didn't have kids. And so adding in that third-party data, the demographics, the household, the purchase intent kind of data is really going to give you a full picture as to who that person is behind an email address. And one really great example that we did for a client many, many years ago was with Ann Taylor Loft. And all we did was simply take their entire email database and we appended the age range field. And then what they did is they took the exact same outfit, but they put it on an age appropriate model. So then they sent to the different age segments within their database and they had, huge increases in conversions and ultimately their ROI. And that was simply by adding one field. So you can get, way more sophisticated than that, or you can keep it simple. And either way, it's going to have, a very beneficial impact to your business. But like you asked, Lizzie, so when it comes to the inactive versus active, so you should absolutely, use the personalization strategy on your active customers, right? But when it comes to your inactive ones, you need to do whatever you can to sort of grab their attention and win them back, right? Like you don't want to invest in the demographics if those emails are undeliverable or, they're just not engaged with you. And then once you, have won them back, then take the time to sort of add the personalization back into their content so that you can retain them as active customers moving forward.
Yeah, no, and I think those are all really great points, Katie. And kind of steering back to deliverability and how that kind of intertwines with one another, that appropriate segmentation helps maintain deliverability and engagement. So with first party data, the nice thing is you can get really, really granular with your email list segmentation and obviously send highly targeted and relevant content. And by doing so, you're just naturally going to get better engagement and in turn, better deliverability. So remember, as I was saying earlier, that you want positive user feedback to outweigh negative. So positive user feedback is key here, and ISPs need to see subscribers interacting with your messages in a positive way. So ultimately, the better your reputation, the better your deliverability, and that obviously can have a nice ripple effect on your ROI.
I agree. So, all in all, making the most of your first party data, it's cost effective, it generates great results, and it helps keep your customers engaged with your brand. So, hopefully some of these tips and tricks gave you guys good ideas on how to take your email marketing to the next level. But I will let Lizzie jump in with any of the questions that came in during the chat.
Yeah, I know these tips are going to help us take our email marketing to the next level, so I'm excited about that. But questions. So the first one that came in, it's asking, where can I check my reputation for my IPs?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have the ability to check your IP and domain reputation. So there's two tools that offer that. One, Google Postmaster, one of the major ISPs, and one being Microsoft for your IP reputation. Now you do have the ability to actually self-monitor this, but you also have the ability to monitor that with a deliverability platform such as Inbox Monster for that example. So we would help you integrate those data points into the platform, and we help you understand the data that's coming through. So definitely I would 100% recommend, if not already doing so, monitoring your IP and domain health.
Sweet. Next question. Do you have a tool or platform to reach out to customers who are not opted in to re-engage?
Opted in to re-engage.
So I think they're concerned about like opt-ins specifically, and it may be around like GDPR, et cetera. Maybe since some of the new rules have come into effect with CCPA. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, so we actually have a solution that can identify anonymous browsers that come to your site that aren't necessarily specifically opted in, but you know, they're permission-based emails in the sense that those individuals have allowed their email to be shared with third parties. So it does allow for us to identify that sort of missing gap of those that are very interested in your brand, but never submitted an email or signed up. So I hope that helps answer your question. There's not necessarily a platform per se, but there is a technology to sort of help with that.
Great. Thank you, Katie. I think that's pretty close to it, if not directly the answer. The next one is, I'm curious to know some common rules around when someone is considered inactive or unengaged. Any advice?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think just simply put, if they aren't, I know with iOS 15 and proxy opens, that can put a little bit of a damper on things when you're kind of analyzing your email metrics, but there's so many other metrics that you can look at to deem somebody inactive. So if, for example, if they're not, well, clicks are a big one, obviously, you know, adding that in with some purchase activity and what Katie was mentioning earlier. But if they just, you know, focusing in on specifics to email activity, simply put, if, you know, either, I kind of classify them in two buckets. So either they've never engaged with your email program, so they've opted in, they've, you know, given you their email address, but they've never engaged with your email since the time of subscription. I put those in the never active buckets. I typically treat those a little more high risk because either there may not be a real person associated behind that email address, or, you know, maybe whatever the reason may be, you might need to apply a little bit more of an aggressive sunset policy on those, or, you know, start re-engaging with them a little bit earlier. And then there's another bucket that I classify personally as inactive. So they've once engaged with your program since subscription, but then they just fell off and kind of just stopped interacting with your emails in whatever form you classify as engagement on your email program. So two different buckets there, but again, it's different. You know, these rules are different for every single program. You know, kind of a general rule of thumb is treat the never actives a little bit more as a higher risk, and then the inactives, you know what, that could be anywhere. They've been active and then they fell short, depending on how often your frequency is, of 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. It really is defined by depending on the program.
Yeah, I would say, you know, with the companies that we work with, they all sort of have a different range that they consider inactive. And so it's completely custom, but I think once you kind of hit that 6-month range where there's just absolutely no activity, you know, I think anywhere from 6 to 9 to 12 months is a really good sort of segment of the database where you can sort of, you know, deem them as truly being inactive, but still worthwhile of trying to sort of re-engage and bring back. It's not been too long.
Absolutely. I know that that's one of like the bigger questions, is just around those kind of date parameters and how long does someone sit in inactive and how does that impact deliverability. So this is very helpful. Let's see, do we have time for a couple more, you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So one that came in was, what's the difference between delivered in my ESP and deliverability? So a little bit of semantics here. Would love to hear input.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that we get quite often, actually. So essentially, delivery is, we're kind of looking at that on the ESP level. So once your email has deployed, ESPs are assigning kind of like a delivery rate. So say, for example, a campaign went out this morning and it had a delivery rate of 98%. When you factor in, the notion of deliverability, what is your true deliverability score? Where did it land in the inbox, or is there filtering going on behind the scenes? So just because your delivery rate on your ESP shows 97 doesn't necessarily mean you have strong deliverability. So I hope that kind of helps distinguish the two.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
then let's see. Ooh, this one's good. I know you're going to have answers for this one. Is it ever too late to make sure my list is valid and start my re-engagement efforts? I want to make sure I'm in great shape by Black Friday.
I don't think so. I mean, we've got clients, for whatever reason, maybe they acquired a new company, or they just had a list sitting stagnant for a long time and they were not utilizing it. At any point, you can validate that list. And it will tell you in this current moment what the deliverability status is of all of those email addresses. And then the activity signals that we can add on top of it are also going to be current to today. So even if that list was generated and created 5 years ago and it's never been mailed to, we can still perform the exact same cleaning and activity check right now, and that will be relevant for sends that you want to do tomorrow and obviously right before the holidays. So you're definitely not too late. That's a good question.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, one that came in as you were answering that is there a list cleanse product that can scrub your list of emails that are inactive? So I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more on what we were just chatting about. So
yeah, so we actually have a solution that we call email change of address, which kind of helps to kind of deal with these types of issues. So if you figured out that the majority of your list was either inactive or undeliverable, very different. Undeliverable just means the emails are bouncing, or they're invalid for whatever reason, or they're inactive. They're not responding after a certain amount of time. You can actually provide us with that list of email addresses, and we can identify the newest, most active deliverable email for that individual. So there are ways to kind of, make sure that you've got the most pertinent email on file for that particular customer of yours.
amazing. Okay, I've got one left. So is there a tool specifically for handling bounces? And I think there are a couple of ways we can answer this, but I think it's a little bit around deliverability and then maybe the bounced emails that are in your CRM, if we have answers for this one.
I'm just trying to understand the question. Hopefully I'll answer it pertaining to how, I guess it was us, but in terms of how to handle bounces, I guess there's two ways to go about it. There's bounce rules that should be, in place within the ESP, standard bounce rules. I know that there's standard ones set across every ESP. Hard bounces and soft bounces. So those should be, naturally removing those, dead or invalid addresses. And the tool itself should really be the ESP you're deploying your email from for removing those bounces. But I don't know, Katie, if you wanted to add anything with regards to, from your point of view, and hygiene.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, like she said, the ESP should be doing kind of a standard check of those hard bounces. I don't know that all of the soft bounces are necessarily caught. So there are times when our clients are running email validation that additional bounces are going to be sort of identified, and there'll be sort of a detailed reason as to why. So it could be a situation where the mailbox is full, or whatever it may be. So I think, your ESP is going to do a very good sort of baseline sort of monitoring, but you want to kind of do sort of the next level to make sure that you are catching those that are risky or potentially toxic for your email database.
Perfect. So that wraps up our questions. I really appreciate you both hanging out today and talking deliverability, holiday prep, all of this good stuff, and the email marketing wins that are powered by first-party data. So I want to say thank you to audience members as well for participating. If we didn't get to your question, we'll follow up with you offline. And then remember, you're going to receive an email follow-up in the next day or two with the full recorded session, as well as a couple of other goodies and contact information for both Katie and Anna. So thank you, Katie and Anna, audience. I appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for the great questions, and thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you for having me.